Right. As everybody joins us, who have we got? We've got Melanie, who's been here forever. We've got Steve, who's dreaming probably of Spain at this stage. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking. I'm going to say it's a bit milder outside, but it's just grey, white. It's just miserable. What's it like up in Inverness, Nadia?
Sunny, bright, clear day. I mean, it's cold, it's 1 degree. But it is, from in here, it looks lovely outside.
Okay. Good. Okay. So, right, let's get started with our fun horror stories. So what I have this week is what started off as really just genuinely trying to find out what the problem was with an employee and ended up in their dismissal. Okay. And so this is a golf club. They sent 2 employees on a food and beverage training up in Edinburgh. So they're staying overnight, and they found out once the 2 people came back from the course, they said that one of them had failed the course. Now, given there's no exam and all you have to do is turn up, they're like, what? How has she failed the course? Turned out she didn't turn up on the second morning. Now, we then had an investigation meeting with her, and got more details. So what we started off with is she hadn't turned up. Okay. Then we found out that she had turned up for breakfast and registration, and then she disappeared without telling anybody anything. They got worried, so they went and banged on her hotel room door. No response, which of course totally freaked them out. Because I'm going to say she could have been out, but they were just really worried she was unconscious in there. They didn't break it in, but they did then call her on the phone. They're like, okay, maybe she has gone out. We'll ring her and see where she is. And she was actually in her room, and she said to them, oh, I'm just having a lie-in. And so this is what we're finding out afterwards. And then she turned up for lunch and stayed for the afternoon session, but she didn't do the morning. So she failed because she didn't do the morning. So we had the investigation meeting with her and said, look, you weren't there. Oh, yes, I was ill. And this is going to segue quite nicely into what Nadia's talking about later. I'm doing IVF, so I've got extra hormones that are making me ill. And so I was ill that morning, and that's why I wasn't in there. And I'm reading the investigation meeting, and I'm like, this could be a welfare meeting rather than a disciplinary. This is strange. But then when you sit down and you go through, it's like, if you were that ill, why did you turn up for breakfast? And let's be clear, registration. It just suddenly felt very much what teenagers do. I'm just saying, my children went to sixth form college, is that you go in for registration and then you disappear because they don't look in the actual lessons. Now, they did end up looking in the lessons, so we caught a few people that way. But the point is, they think that, well, I've registered, I'm here. The fact I'm not physically here is neither here nor there. And she also claimed that she didn't realise that if she didn't turn up, she would fail. Because she said, well, I could just get the stuff from Louis. And I'm like, wow, this is sounding so much like a teenager now at school. Oh, I'll just borrow his notes. He's got the notes. It's fine. I don't need to actually be there to get the notes. But the fact that she raised these hormones, we're like, oh, okay. Although there's a few questions around it. But then she apparently came in the next day because we were still going, should we do welfare? Should we do disciplinary? Because she didn't pass and it cost money and we had to pay for the hotel and the flights and everything. So what should we do? We're still umming and ahhing. And then she came in and to their office at the club and said, actually, I'm not on hormones and am I going to lose my job? And she was told, well, we have to go through the process. I can't possibly tell you. But the fact that she so quickly rode back on the hormones, she actually then said, well, I've got acid reflux and I've already thrown up twice today. It's like, acid reflux is horrible, but it's very straightforward to keep under control with a pill, with medication, very easy to get from the GP. There is no long waiting period for that. You tell them what you've got. You will do that all virtually via their contact forms. They do not need to see you for this. This is not something that she was also claiming that she was ill the whole week before the course with the acid reflux as well, which had come on from the hormones. And I'm like, that I've had acid reflux. That is not how it works, and you don't suffer it. You go and get a pill, you talk to your GP and say, I've got this, it's horrible, and they say, yeah, have a pill, and it's gone. Okay, it's very straightforward. So it's like, this is where we're like, yeah, actually we're going to go through the disciplinary procedure. Now, we were going to do the disciplinary, but we thought first we'll go and talk to her colleague and see what he has to say, because also there were no receipts submitted for the Thursday evening. So they had receipts for everything else, but not for the Thursday evening. It's a bit weird. So they sat down with him and said, oh, how was the course? Oh, yeah, it's all good, fine, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there weren't any receipts. Well, did you not go out for a meal on Thursday evening? And he said, and it's like, you've got to get better at lying, mate. You really have. He said, oh, no, I had a really large lunch. It's like, when you are on expenses, I'm not saying you're going to have champagne and caviar, but you are going to have a decent meal in the evening when you're in Edinburgh, when you're allowed to. You're not going, there's no way you would say, oh, I had the free buffet at the hotel and that was enough for me. No. Not even vaguely believable. Anyway, it was just interesting reading that. But as soon as they turned off the recorder, he said, actually, we went out on the town on Thursday evening. She drank a whole bottle of red wine before we even left the hotel. And then we went out and she was so drunk that by 9 o'clock, I had to put her in a taxi to send her back to the hotel. And he said, yeah, and I didn't get back till, midnight, and I was pretty much the worst for wear, as was this other guy who went with us. But they did what we've all learned we have to do. They turned up and they sat there with their pounding heads, or they got the pills, the paracetamol, the aspirin and the Alka-Seltzer, and they sat there and they at least pretended to listen, if not actually listening. And she didn't. She had an awful hangover, absolutely fine. But you have to turn up. That's what you do, unfortunately, when you're grown up, or as opposed to a teenager. And she's about mid-20s, so you think she would have got it by now. So having got that from her colleague, we're like, actually, I don't think you should do a disciplinary now, because she's under 2 years. That at every stage here, she has been lying. She's not. When he was asked what happened, on the record, he didn't tell you, but as soon as the recording stopped, he said, actually, no, the truth is da-da-da. He took the opportunity, okay? She had 3 different opportunities to say what had happened, and every single time, she doubled down on what she was doing. She also said that she'd spoken to the course leader and apologised at lunchtime, and the course leader said, she's never spoken to me. And you do wonder what people think, what employees are thinking, but not employees, people, it is people. It's like, you do know we can ask them, and they are more trustworthy at this point than you are. So, and why would they lie about you apologising? Of course they say, oh yes, she apologised. Why would they lie about that? So, so they had the dismissal conversation yesterday. I'm going to say, I didn't realise they were going to be quite so coy about why they were dismissing, but they said, look, you've lied. We know you lied about Edinburgh. We can't keep you in your position of responsibility, because she was a team supervisor. She was in charge of stuff. It's like, she's made a mistake. She's covered up to make the mistake. I'm going to say she's also thrown the sisterhood under a bus by using a female medical condition as her excuse, in the hope that people would stop asking questions. And that, for me, is unforgivable. You can lie about many things, but don't pretend, because now you've undermined it for the rest of the people who are genuinely suffering. And I heard the recording, she was in tears, but she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything wrong. It's like, you have done something wrong. You've lied to us, and you know you've lied to us. I was like, no, I haven't lied to you at all. And it's like, we know, and we've had this with other employees as well, that when we've had CCTV evidence of them drinking on duty, and they're like, oh no, I wasn't drinking. You can see yourself drinking. Yeah, it's not me. Well, who is it then if it's not you? Because you can see everything. There is no doubt that it's not even that they're saying it's deep fakes. They're just like, yeah, no, it's just not me. I wouldn't drink. And you're like, okay, there is a level of delusion here. Anyway, so she was terminated, and in the termination letter, we put all the details, every step of that it's sort of investigation process in to go, you lied about this, you lied about that, you lied about that, da, 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 and that is why you're terminated. And she has still come back and said, no, some of the facts are wrong. They're not wrong. Why would people be lying about this? If you had only not turned up for registration, you can say you're ill. If you just said you were ill, you would have got off the morning. We would have had a problem still. You still wouldn't have completed the course, but we would have, you would have had an official reason. The fact that you tried to play the system rang up all these bells and has ended up with you being dismissed because you thought you were being so clever. And I'm going to say, having seen, some people use their physical appearance to get out of things, be they male or female. And that is what has always happened, it seems, in this person's life. And that's not possible when we're talking about these things. So we're interested to see what she goes to early conciliation about, because that's what we've told her to do now, that she's obviously unhappy. And please go to early conciliation, and they'll probably go, well, did you do that? Yes, but it's not fair. Can't help you. Off you go. Thank you very much. But it's nice when it's not that straightforward, but when there are things straightforward, but it's when you start asking questions. This is why you shouldn't be accepting anything anybody, God, they will sound paranoid now. Don't accept what they say at first value. They say it's this. It's like, okay, tell me more about that. Don't just go, right, I'm moving on. You ask questions. You assume that they are your teenage children who have done something wrong. And you just need to keep asking the questions until they, have the rope to hang themselves. Okay. So I'm just saying that went from a really straightforward, we just need to work out what's happened so that we've done our duty of care for her, to a dismissal because it's so clear that we cannot keep her in the business anymore because she lies about everything that she's been doing. And you can't, if she made a mistake somewhere else, there's no way we could trust that she would be flagging it up for somebody to deal with, because she hasn't this time. And why would she do it another time? So there you go. So that's a lovely positive one that we've done. So it's an idea now.
Find my unmute button here. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about menopause, and we've had a few questions about it, and how it affects, more how employers need to deal with employees who is affected by menopause in the workplace. So this is very much if you have an employee that is struggling in work with her work due to being impacted by menopause symptoms. So if you have an employee that has worked for you for 15 years and she has always been great, she's always done her job well, you've never had any concerns or any issues, and then suddenly over the last 12 or 18 months, this employee has changed. Their behavior has changed. They might have become more irritable. They might have become more anxious. They might have become more withdrawn. And also their work is suffering. You think, their performance isn't what it used to be. They keep messing up. They keep forgetting things. They keep making mistakes. They get really upset about it when I talk to them about it. I used to be able to do a review and be like, Sue, what is this? Why does it look like that? Now, when I ask that question, Sue has a meltdown. What is going on? And now, the reason I really looked into this is not necessarily the two questions we've had in the week about it, but it is also because a case came to my, failing at English here, to my attention. I'm going to go with it's not my first language. It came to my attention. I don't have the details of who the case was. I just sort of quickly read it and went, oh, hold on. I've had two questions and now this case has come up. So basically, they've had an employee that's worked with them for several years. And over the last sort of up to a year, sort of 9 to 12 months, her performance has really dipped. The manager, a male manager, sorry guys, went straight to performance management with this employee. Spoke to her informally once or twice, being like, this isn't right, you need to fix this, you need to sort this, what are these mistakes? But never kind of had the conversation of, this isn't like you, what is going on? More just I've picked up on these and these and these mistakes, like they need to be corrected. This isn't okay. And then went straight into formal performance management. The employee was dismissed sort of 3 months later due to poor performance. Throughout this performance management process, at some point, she then came out with it and said, look, going through menopause, really struggling, like I'm struggling to concentrate, I'm forgetful, I get confused, I struggle to concentrate, I don't know what I did last and what I need to do next, and this is really impacting on me. This is where the manager really went wrong. So instead of stopping and saying, okay, let's look at reasonable adjustments, let's have a conversation, let's understand what's going on, this manager, whose wife had already gone through menopause or was going through menopause and not severely affected by it, because some people are that lucky, decided to make his own judgment about her health condition, and decided that because his wife could carry on working and was really not that impacted by it, he didn't think it was serious enough to impact on her performance, and that she was using it as an excuse. Like what's-his-face did in Carolyne's case, saying, oh, I have fertility treatment. So he thought she was trying to use it as an excuse for not performing. Continued with the process and dismissed her, never having done anything about her her menopause concerns, other than to say, well, it's not really that serious and it shouldn't really be affecting your performance to this level. Needless to say, this person claimed unfair dismissal, discrimination. She used sex discrimination. She claimed this as being sex discrimination, because I'll talk to you in a minute about menopause and discrimination and where it falls and how it falls. And she won. She won her case because he's not a doctor. He's not a professional expert at menopause. And he made a judgment and decided it's not so bad. You're putting it on a bit, using it as an excuse. And actually, you're just, I don't know what he thought, whether she's suddenly become dumb or lazy, which is unrealistic. So wanted to chat to you quickly about just some of the factual stuff, okay? So the common symptoms that affect employees in the workplace for menopause can be, there's a load of things, physical things that you maybe can see or maybe can't see, but I'm talking more about the things that actually affect their ability to do their job or their conduct, that are maybe things that you can't necessarily see. So these are things like insomnia, low mood, irritability. If someone's not sleeping, they become, if I'm not sleeping, I become completely irrational and useless. So, Carolyne. Insomnia, low mood, irritability, anxiety, panic attacks, poor memory, difficulty concentrating, increased sickness absence record, dips in performance and conduct issues, mostly because of how they respond to things when there's pressure on them and they're feeling anxious, and then actually that response is something that you would then see as a conduct problem potentially. and difficulty functioning just as usual as they used to be in the workplace. So the question we've had this week is, what do we legally need to give someone who has told us that they are struggling with menopause symptoms and it's affecting their work? The question was phrased in a way that they wanted to understand what the bare minimum was that they had to do. Preferably, they wanted me to say nothing. There is no legal requirement to do anything. It's not what I said. So, oddly, and this still surprises most women at this point, menopause is not actually in itself, if you look at just that word, it is actually not one of the protected characteristics. It isn't listed like pregnancy and maternity or age or sex as a protected characteristic. Blows my mind, but there we go. However, you need to consider all of the other things that come with the symptoms that could be considered protected characteristics. And let me tell you, they will fall in one of these, if not several. So age is a very obvious one. This is something that affects middle-aged to older women. So someone could say, well, you know, I'm 55 and I'm struggling, and they let me go, and they kept the 27-year-old girl on, and I have menopause or age related condition or situation is maybe more accurate, and therefore it's age discrimination. It is often boxed into sex discrimination because it affects women, not men. Therefore, it is sex discrimination. And then the disability is the one that people struggle to get their head around because it's not listed as such. But if you think of things that it causes anxiety, it causes insomnia, it causes depression, it causes physical health issues. So those things can certainly fall into protected characteristics in terms of disability. This is a little bit like when you have someone who's severely overweight. We've had that question before, and someone say, is someone who is morbidly obese protected under the Disability Act? Not because they're morbidly obese, but if they have diabetes, if they struggle with anxiety, if they have other mental health issues, if they have physical issues like heart conditions, that kind of thing. Yes, all those things do. So this is exactly the same. Just because the word menopause doesn't fit in, everything connected to it probably will. So bottom line, treat it as a protected characteristic. Now, what does that mean in terms of dealing with an employee who has a conduct or a performance issue that could be related to menopause symptoms? The first thing to do is, when you have an employee who's worked for you for a long time and you know them, and suddenly they are different, ask the question. Don't just ask this now of middle-aged women. You should be asking this of any employee who is suddenly changed in their behavior. And if that employee then says to you that they have menopause symptoms that are impacting on their day-to-day life or their work, that at that point, you should be discussing with them what they need, what they're struggling with, and what adjustments needs to be made. Because one of the things they will get you on if they bring a claim is the failure to have made reasonable adjustments. I can guarantee you, actually, that's what they will get you on. Because if you know, you know, and if you fail to discuss that with them and then make adjustments, that's when you're going to end up with a claim against you for discrimination arising from a disability, and and failure to make reasonable adjustments. And unfortunately, that might be a very high price tag for that claim. So supporting employees through these challenges is really important, talking to them about it, trying to understand, trying to support them. This doesn't mean that if you have a very serious conduct issue or you have a very serious performance issue, that you can't do anything about it. What it does mean is that you have to talk to them first. You have to make adjustments. You have to do what you can as an employer to support them. And then if you continue to have problems, come talk to us before you do anything else, please. So yeah, that's menopause. Any questions on that? No? Any questions at all about anything? Go for it, Mal.
Mine relates to Caroline's story, actually, the whole lying employee and how you sort of dismiss and so on, because obviously we talked about that, and I've got one. I had a little look online at some stuff, and I was planning, I know when I'm going to do the talk, and the talk's going to be, we're letting you go, but it said don't mention the thing that they've done, i.e. that they've lied and falsified these documents, because that could be creating an argument, and they could push back. And for example, because there's the grievance thing going on, they could say, well, actually, you're doing it because of the grievance thing, which is actually doing the whistleblower thing, saying like, because I've flagged up this employee. Yep. So there's that. And all those sorts of things. So there was some suggestion of saying, well, it's to do with business need or a management decision, but I don't know if that's too wishy-washy. And also, if I then take on someone else, it's like, well, you took them on, why are you not taking me on? So it's knowing really what to say because of that other stuff, because now I'm a little bit worried about what to say. So I guess from an HR perspective, there's sort of two languages. There's wanna say and there's can I say, and I need you to translate wanna say into can I say.
Okay, so we wouldn't normally in a termination under 2 years put a lot of detail in. And like I said, the client was say, I'm interested why they said lying actually, as opposed, and wouldn't give any more details. But the reason we did give more details in the letter is because we had documented and recorded the conversation. So we had proof in writing of the situation.
We have proof. So we have proof that there's falsified record, but even so, it's this whole thing because of the grievance. It's thinking, well, is this just going to inflame things? But the trouble is, if you say to somebody, well, we've made this decision to let you go for management reasons, whatever it might be, and you are suitably vague, they're going to say, well, why? What have I done? What's this? What's that? Yeah. And that, and it's handling that.
Well, okay, but the person is under 2 years service, so there's very little that they can actually bring. The whistleblowing is very weak. That is not a strong whistleblowing claim. And again, they're under 2 years. It's not a given. I'm going to say, my mind's gone blank as to what the issue was, but
So basically, she'd said she'd phoned clients and she hadn't. She made up stories. She'd booked people and, that type of thing. So the thing is that I'd love to be able to say why. So in other words, we're letting you go because we've proven we can't trust you. These things have happened. But from what I've been reading, it's saying, well, don't say that. And okay, if it's safer to not say it, fine, unless there's a middle ground.
Okay, so I don't think there's a middle ground. Okay, so the way I would do it is have all the reasons, everything that we have facts on to say. What I've done in the past is when I've had to get rid of people is they say, I've not done anything wrong. Why are you getting rid of me? I said, well, you did this, and then you did this, and then you did this. And then by the third one, they're like, yeah, whatever. And I'm out of there because they didn't expect you to have anything specific. So I think you should have the list. Don't expect to have to necessarily go through it. But if they start saying, well, I didn't do that, it's like, no, this is not a discussion. I am telling you why I no longer have any trust in you. Therefore, you're terminated, we'll pay your notice period, off you go, that type of thing. So
And do I put that in
wouldn't
the
put
letter
it
as well? Do I say in the letter, you've been
no,
let
I
go
wouldn't.
because of mistrust?
No, I wouldn't normally in the letter. I would just say you haven't. What I do like to say is you haven't met the standards of performance or standards of conduct that we expect from an employee at your level. Full stop. And then if they come back via early conciliation, which would be highly unlikely, but if they did, then they say, oh, you got rid of them because of whistleblowing. I'm going to say that those whistleblowing things are not a concern. The ones that have been, or the one that I do know, remember being very successful with the whistleblowing claim, was a senior guy who raised about 15 health and safety infringements. Now, I wasn't involved in dealing with that grievance. We weren't involved. They dealt with it themselves, which was a mistake. And then they decided they wanted to get rid of him. But we didn't know about their health and safety when they did that. And he then successfully claimed it's because I raised all these health and safety concerns that it's whistleblowing. About hours.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think whistleblowing is when you raise concerns that affect the wider staff rather than just affect you. So her thing is about her training. So it's not a true whistleblowing.
But if she raised something along the lines of, well, you're firing me because I objected to lifting something that was over 20 kilos, that would be a whistleblowing claim. But that's not what it is. So I don't think there's any problem there. They're under 2 years. It's not protected characteristic. Right. You know what it is that they did. You got the proof or didn't do. So I would actually say it in the meeting to try and shorten the meeting. And if they start trying to argue, it's like, no, not a discussion. You need to leave now. And I will send the letter to you. But in the letter, you can just say we've decided to end your employment. You don't even need to say not met the standards. And that's it. And this is what you get. And if they go to ACAS, and any emails you get, you say, go to ACAS. Here's the link. Not interested. Thank you very much.
And I record the meeting, presumably.
Yes, that would be best. Yeah.
Okay. And I start it by saying that we've had these issues, or I just say we're letting you go and I only bring it to the table when they question.
Yes, correct. That's what I would do. Is wait until they question it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Steve, do you have any questions? Oh, you're mute. I can't hear you. No. Okay. Well, we'll get it sorted out for next week, and then you can ask all your questions next week. Okay. Lovely. Right. Well, have a lovely weekend, and we will see you all next week then. Take care.
Thanks for watching. If you want a free tribunal audit of your employment contract and handbook, click the link in the description below.